G'day and welcome back to my channel. Yes, the rumours of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I think Noel Coward said that one. Yes, I've been sick. Yeah, I've been crook for the last month, and it's been really hard for me to do any videos and try and get work done. But I'm back, and I have been working this week on the Heracles, right? This is the Airfix kit. It's a 1 to 144th scale. You try saying that with your bloody teeth in. Yes, it's quite tiny scale, but it's actually a reasonable size aeroplane. So I've been working all week, and as you expect, I'd probably get the thing finished. No, Harry, it looks like you haven't done anything. I mean, that's pretty well how you ended the last video. But look, things can be deceiving. Let me take a few of these useless parts off. Well, they're not useless. These parts are just in the way. Oh, look, it's pretty inside. How about that? I have done an entire interior. Yeah. I've 3D printed seats and I've painted it all up. And look, it can be just seen through the windows. A bit hard to see under studio lighting. In my photographs it does. So I've got a cockpit area. Look at that tiny little thing. And I 3D printed that as well, I'll show you. And I'll provide all these 3D parts for free. The files, at least. You have to print them. You want me to print them, I'm going to charge you. But no, if you've got a 3D printer or you've got access to someone, I'll give you all the little files, all the seats, all the measurements and everything for what I've done. So there you go. That's what's in this video. Does that sound interesting? I hope so. Let's roll the music. Well, after a week of delays, just mainly due to Revel's inaccurately scaled kits that had me pulling my hair out trying to build some rat harps, I'm finally back to working on the Heracles. Now, this isn't the kit that I reviewed. Well, it is the kit, but it's not the exact same kit. The kit that I reviewed was Becca's. Yep, that is true. But he got so excited that I'd already done the struts and a few other things and solved a few problems and cleaned up the parts. He just said, give it back to me as is, and I'll replace it with another kit. So he actually bought me another box. And so I had to start again, which is a bit of a bugger. I had to do it all over again. So what I've done now is I haven't done the struts yet, but I have actually glued the wings together. So we can, probably easier if I take it out. I have, and of course you always do a better job the second time. So I've cleaned those up inside, because if you watched the last video with the unboxing, you know there was a little bit of ejection points in there that need to be cleaned up. Tiny bit of flash, they've come up well. So that wing's fine, and this wing too. I mean, it's quite huge for a 1 to 144 scale kit, and that's the thing. Even though it's that tiny scale, it actually ends up being a reasonable size model, albeit a little bit fiddly in places because some things are still going to be tiny, like props and everything. So there you go. So that is, that's the extent of things. Now, I've dry fit in, well, actually it's got a little bit of liquid tape, the canopy on mine to see how it all worked. And Becca was complaining bitterly about his. I hadn't taken the clear parts out when I did the kit review, and apparently his is short shots. I actually lucked out. The kit I've got, my canopy is fine, so that fits perfectly. So look, everything is looking quite good. What I want to do now is I want to address the interior. I'm going to toss up whether I'm just going to paint the interior and then get on and paint the rest of it, or should I make a little bit of interior? How much can we see through those windows? Well, you can see a bit. This has got me thinking. Bask, warm up the 3D printer. Well, I've been busy here. I took a whole lot of measurements of the inside sort of spacing on the cabin windows and how big it was, and I even got my profile tool out and I ran that along there. It's pretty well straight edge, but it slightly curves at the ends. So that wasn't too hard a thing to actually cut out of some stock, right? Forget 3D at this point, I just want to see if I can make a floor, and yeah, it came up really well. And that's just a rectangle of 15mm by 100mm, but then it's tapered at either end so that it fits nicely. So easy as that. Now, the trick is, they're supposed to be like bulkheads, so I don't think I'll bother with those. I don't think you'll ever see them. The seats, well, I've got 15 across for those, so 3/5 of 15, okay. So in that case, I can have a seat of 3, because they're in doubles. Here's some pics, that's how they look. So I have a spacing of 3 for a very skinny stewardess or air flight person, whatever they call them now. You know, you're not allowed to call them hosties anymore. And then 3 and 3. So that should work in theory. So we've done a bit of CAD and now just hot off the printer. Look at these cute little guys. 10 tiny little seats straight off the printer. So I've made them just like the ones that I saw in the photographs of this aircraft. In they go. And through the window, you will just see them. Look, you can see him. There he is. There's a seat. Should line him up with the window, I suppose. Line him up with our back window. So I'll sit hard up against there. Obviously need gluing in. But you will see them. And they're all floral design, so I'm just going to paint them a very light cream coloured and then a darker cream on the walls. And then I'll paint the floor a sort of a grey. Of course, now that I've gone all the trouble to do that, and I've got to stick all those seats in, obviously. I'll do that shortly. I'm going to have to design something for the cabin as well. The cockpit right up here. Done the cabin, Harry. You're doing the cockpit. So, yeah, I'll have to create a little floor for that. It'll be a bit higher. A couple of seats in. I don't know about yokes and things, but we'll see how we go. I reckon a couple of seats and a floor, that'll be enough. Well, it's a few days later and I've had time to play, and I've worked out the profile for the floor in there of the cockpit. So that part fits. That I just made out of some scratch sprue, 0.5mm thick, well, thin, it's not very thick, and that does the job of giving us a base for the cockpit area. And it's a little bit higher. It sits a little bit higher than the level down here for the seats here in the passenger cabin. Alright, so with that done, I thought, well, okay, we need those seats now, and again, I'm too lazy to basically scratch them, not when I've got a 3D printer. So I 3D printed some little seats. I thought, oh, that's okay, that's quite nice. That'll do the job. And then that's roughly the shape. I was basically going to cut them out and stick them on that piece that I'd made. And I thought, oh, well, maybe we can go a bit further because, you know, basically we got this far. We've got a printer. Maybe we can do something really terrific. Doesn't quite look like the photo, does it? Yeah, the photo that I had there of the design didn't quite work. I mean, the seats printed nicely again. I got the steering, sort of the centre column, but then the wheels set out either side. What was happening is they end up being so fine. They're, you know, literally 0.5 millimetre in roundness. You know, they're 4mm circle, but the actual thickness of the actual steering wheel is like 0.5 millimetre. And although the printer can print it, it just collapses and the whole thing breaks and falls down. So it took me a while to figure it out. I had to thicken them up a bit, as I was like a dog at a bone. So they're not actually to scale, but when we view back this way, we're going to have something I can put a bit of paint on, and we'll have them. Trouble is, to get those to print, I had to print this thing at a weird angle, right, to get it to all basically go. There you go, it's a focus. So I had to print it like that, which meant the seats didn't print well. But I figure I've got steering wheels and a column there on that one, and on this one, or the other one, I have, again, the little column. But I've got some really nice seats. And hopefully, if I pinch the seats off one and the steering wheels off the other and stick that on my base, I should have a nice 3D printed cockpit. Well, I've been painting and I've got the base and all the little seats, and I have combined those seats and the steering wheels that I like and put them onto the front part for the cockpit. And they seem to work rather well. So they've okay. I've used Stynylrez as my primer because it'll pretty well go over everything, and I've let it dry overnight only because I was kind of busy in the afternoon yesterday, so it got an extra drying session. It probably only needed like a couple of hours. It's usually dry to the touch pretty well straight away, but I've let it completely dry, so with a bit of luck there'll be nothing. Yeah, it's not lifting at all off the PLA, because that's the printing material for 3D. So now I can get on with the colours. The seats are going to go a shade lighter. That's just a Gel brown, right? It's just a light sort of creamy colour, which the actual seats had, if you see the photos, had all these floral designs on. The interior is supposed to look like the Orient Express, the famous train that went across the top of Europe and into the Orient. So they sort of wanted that feel, you know. Obviously people were paying good money to fly in these things, so that's the look they were after. So yeah, a little light cream to go on the chairs, the seats. Then the base here, well, they had a kind of very interesting, almost like sort of a Persian carpet type effect, you know, a very oriental looking carpet, but I'm not going to do that. Again, we won't see any of it. What I need is a contrasting colour, so I'm going to use this tan. Okay, this is just a tan colour, and that should give a nice contrast to the seats, so that you should be able to see the seats and differentiate it from the floor. And of course the inside walls of the cabin, well, they are going to be the Steiner-Rees yellow, because that'll work really well for the passenger cabin anyway. When it comes to cockpit, completely different. Now, it's hard to tell from the photos, but I've made an executive decision. I am going to use this, which is an ocean grey. It is an RAF colour, so it does come from Blighty, and this is a plane from Blighty, so probably no connection whatsoever, probably totally different time periods, but anyhow, this is World War II greyish colour, which I think will suit the interior perfectly. And then I'll just paint the seats in a bit of the tan, so they've got a bit of contrast. And that's going to be something like it's hard to tell. I think the cockpit was mainly just all black, but if I do that, I won't see any of this detail. I will use black, however, on the steering wheel edges, right? The grips. Put a bit of black on those, and that should give something of an interior that we'll be able to see through what limited visibility there is into the cockpit. So, let's get on with that. Well, finally, I've got a few things painted, and it's tiny, but there is the little cockpit. So that's ready to go. And the interior, I have painted the yellow. There's the tan colour for the floor. That's just dry fit in there. But I have put the silver on the outside. Now, there is method to my madness here, because I don't want to have to mask up all these tiny windows. So I'm going to use a trick that I did when I painted the Sunderland, and that is I paint the interior colour, and then I paint the exterior colour on the parts before I assemble, and then I can put all the clear parts in, and then I just mask out that whole window section as one thing. As one rectangle. Well, one rectangle. A few rectangles. Yes, there'll be a few rectangles. And that is a lot easier than masking out individual windows, let me tell you. I know there's other methods. They probably all work well, but that's what I'll do. Now, I want to put this cockpit interior that I've made into that spot there, and it's got to set up a bit higher. So I've sort of measured it and played around, and I've made a little riser for it. So let's put that together now. Now the windows are quite thick. Yep, we know that. So that's okay. That's in keeping with everything else. Now how do I get those in there? All right, without wrecking everything. Ideally you should do this with the fuselage halves apart, but stupid me, I've put that little piece in there, that riser, for my front cockpit area, and that's glued my fuselage halves together. Oops! Yes, all right, well, I'll just keep going. So I've cut out the piece, all right? So this is piece number 3, that was piece number 1, and then I'll do a dry fit, because one end is fairly tight and one end has got a bit of a loopy thing, so always dry fit. But now I'm just going to flip it over so it sits there ready to drop in, right? Place this down. So that is sitting there quietly, if it'll cooperate. Just sit there, mate. And I'll give you a bit of a tip. There we go. Now, I very gently put some PVA white wood glue. This will not cloud the windows. If it bleeds through at all, you can wipe it off with a tissue with a little bit of water. That's very easy to do. Anyhow, it dries clear, so even if you miss a tiny bit, usually it all kind of disappears. So now, if I've still got that sitting where it should be, I can tip that into the hole. You could probably do this a lot easier if you hadn't glued the halves together. But if you've done what I've done, you've already kind of glued the halves together and think, oh, I've got to put those windows in. This is a way to get around when you have done something stupid like I have done. Okay, so they will they'll set in there in a sec. PVA white wood glue does not take long to get tacky, especially under a hot light. Alright, I'll get all the rest of them done, and then we'll put the seats in. Now I want to put the seats into the passenger cabin. And again, this is probably I should have thought of doing before the fuselage halves were together, but oh well. What I've done is I've measured where the seats will sit, but I'm concerned if I put them on now and try and wedge this in, I'll probably knock them all off. So I'm going to put them onto those little marker spots. Now, what I did was I worked out where the one would sit for the back door, okay, on the port side. So that one there, which I was going to put it so it will sit just on the edge of the window, so it'll just basically be seen through the window. And then I measured off it roughly about 7mm for each one, so 7mm apart. Do those 5, 20mm space on the port side. Do those 4 there. Actually, it's 6 there and 4 there, and they're 7 apart as well, so it'll be nice and evenly spaced. On this side, they stagger back a bit, so again they'd line up with those one backwards here and there's one forward here. Now, be careful that one forward, because in my case it was going to bang into the little cockpit area that I built, so I needed to cut just a tiny little bit off the corner of the part here for the window. I didn't actually cut the window, I cut right up to it, so it's diagonal across there, right? Diagonal across there to the window. So that worked for that. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is pop this in here. And I've still got my little arrow on there that I put there from the start, so make it a bit easier to try and figure out what's going on. Already some glue in there. Let's see if we can do it without scratching it this time. So I already managed to put a big scratch in the bloody thing. So is that level? Nearly. It's getting caught on the windows. Here we go. Brute force and ignorance, and then it needs to go forward quite a bit, Harry. That's why it wasn't fitting. There we go, it goes up to there, and with a bit of luck all my marks line up to the windows. They do, so they're not bad at all. Not bad at all. Okay, well, now we start popping in seats. So they're all in. Here they are. Unfortunately, the width of the side pieces, the clear pieces, have pushed the seats in. So now you need a very skinny hostie to get down there, but doesn't matter anyway. Look, they're just visible, and I've taken some photos, and you can sort of see them. They're there, and I'm rather happy with my cockpit anyway at the front. Problems arise when we actually start to cover them up, of course. So. That one. Yes, it's all going to disappear, but we know it's there, and there's that part there. So once the daylight's removed, yeah, they're in there. The little guys are in there. We can still see them. As far as the cockpit goes, it's a bit hard for the camera to really see anything, but in real life I can actually see in there. There are seats and there are steering wheels. They are there. It's just, can you see it? Really hard for the camera to actually see it, but it is there. It's better than just having a big empty void. So once that's all masked up and we've only got little windows, who knows? But it's an exercise that I have done, and I have started the kit, which is what I promised to do. So look, you know, if you thought this was interesting, then hit these buttons down here. There's buttons. There's always buttons in my life, and this video is no different. And if you really like what I'm doing and like to pay for my curry fund, you can buy me a curry. Yeah, that'll help. It'll help me realise, you know, not to glue things together until I'm ready to put things inside. But yeah, look, it's all sort of done. Honestly, I wouldn't use the Airfix clear parts. Right? This would be my recommendation, because they really do distort and hide so much. If you can figure out some way, I'll leave this sort of like a film stuff that you can put in there, like you squeeze it out of a bottle and it kind of clings across there. or if you can do it with some little pieces of acetate, I don't know. Or just don't even bother putting them in. I've heard people saying I didn't even bother to put them in. I let that open so I could see inside. And that would be a better way if you're going to go the trouble of printing out my 3D parts, which will be available free online. I'll put a link in this video. So, yeah. Yes, you can put seats inside the Hercules, but the question is, should you? And that can only be a personal choice. So there you go. That's all I've got to say. So it's goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Denny. Yes, Pascal, this is not one you can chew. And put that lizard down. You've been chasing that lizard around in my hobby room all the time. I've been trying to do this. It's very annoying. I've glued my fingers together twice. Oops. Is the microphone still on? Bask!